Brian Gosling's encounter with Bigfoot in August of 1976 remains a landmark case for the Whitehall area. This incident is notable not only for its dramatic nature, but also for the credibility lent by the involvement of local law enforcement officers. On that fateful night, following a series of reported encounters involving both town police and state troopers, Brian, then off-duty, decided to visit the area where these sightings had been reported. He had no inkling that he would come face to face with the legendary creature of folklore himself, Sasquatch.
But there's cattails down here, and I heard that noise. Jesus Christ, that sounds like cattails. I got the spotlight like this. So I heard the whooshing noise for the last time, and that's when I got this
goosebumps. The goosebumps.
Cold chills.
You know, I get them I sort of like relive this sometimes. Something said, turn your light on now. And I did, right straight off the corner of my passenger side of my car. There's this freaking creature standing there, man. And it's like, all I can explain is a feeling like hot honey being poured over you. Your body feels like it's going to spontaneously combust. You've got a bazillion thoughts in your head when they say your life flashes before your eyes. Mine did. I mean, from my childhood all the way up, I think I was 24 years old, 26 years old. Everything that I'd ever experienced in my life was bang, that quick.
The encounter was so harrowing that it compelled Brian to draw his service revolver. The creature paused, shielding its eyes from the bright spotlight and letting out a bone-chilling scream before turning away and disappearing into the night. The experience has had a lasting impact on Brian. He frequently shares his story, despite it continuing to haunt him. Many Bigfoot researchers dedicate their entire lives to seeking a face-to-face encounter with the elusive creature, but Brian had this rare experience firsthand. His encounter motivated him to establish his Sasquatch research organization, through which he has spent the past 50 years investigating and gathering evidence of the creature. For those interested in hearing more about Brian's gripping encounter and subsequent research, we highly recommend checking out our previous video featuring his first-hand account. The link to the video is provided in the description.
So what's up, Finding Dystopia friends and family? We're out here tonight in Vermont at the Poultney River with Brian Gosselin and his wife Sue, and we're trying to get any type of vocalizations. We're really hoping to hear possibly a Sasquatch or maybe even see one. Sue brought some apples out here, and this is the second location that we've tried so far. The first one was a little bit of a bust because it started to rain. So we came out here, Brian took us here. We're gonna spend about an hour here, see what we can come up with, and head back over towards the tent and probably go overnight to finish up the investigation.
Do you want to talk about quick what happened down here?
Well, this is back 50 years ago or so. On the property we're on, there used to be a small farm, and up here there's high ledges. I don't know if it's granite or what, but it's really super hard rock, all kinds of ledges up there. And the people that lived here, I happened to be going out with a granddaughter. It was a few years back, and her mother, who was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian, told us the story about they set up the property, they got out of farming. They had quite a few barns, small barns, but they started having riding stables down here, so they had places where they fed the horses for a week in this meadow, so on and so forth. But up this way, maybe it's 1/8 of a mile up on the right, there used to be a meadow right here that was cut in half. And the ponies were kept on one side of the fence until they grazed and there was nothing left to eat. They'd open the gate and put them on the other side. But anyway, they couldn't find a certain pony, and I guess it was a 400, 500, 600-pound pony. They couldn't find it, so they went up into the meadow, and they found the horse, and it had been killed by something, but the horse wasn't dragged. It actually was picked up and carried up to the upper meadow and thrown over the fence, and this, whatever it was, didn't open the gate or anything like that. And they found the horse was completely decapitated, just like a professional. You took the leg and yanked that off, this leg, the front legs. All that was left was the skeleton and the hide and the head. In the same area, there's a group of Audubon people, actually, that come out of Vermont. And there's a certain bird that only comes down this neck of the woods. I don't know if they're out of Canada, but I know they're a northern bird. and they come down here to nest. And they were on the other side. This is the other side of the Poultney River. And they were down, probably down here another 1/8 of a mile or so. And they were all set up. There were three, 4 guys there. And they had binoculars and all that stuff, looking for this bird. And right up at one of the top of the high peaks up there where it's all hemlock, maple, there's a variety of trees, but it just happened to be a hemlock. And one of the guys noticed there was a hemlock, probably yay big around. And it's just like something was at the base shaking it because the tree was doing this, nothing else was moving. There was no wind. Why would one tree be doing that? But anyway, everybody got their binoculars on. A guy said he saw a big, dark-colored, hairy creature was shaking that tree, but there was something that fell out of the top of the tree, whether it be a raccoon or what, but they could see it come down through, boom, on the ground. This thing bent over, picked it up, and proceeded to go back beyond, over into the woods. So we've had reports down in this area over the years, but this is the same area. It's between Carver's Falls and this area, straight across over into Gaelick's property, right at the northern part of Whitehall, out through and right up into the mountains over there in Lake George. It's just one big constant line of reports, and it's been like this since 76. We've had different people that used to fish up to the Cogman Bridge, and they wouldn't even fish. This is a lady that was she worked at the Big Apple Diner, and she said her and her boyfriend was down here years ago, and she said there were boulders bigger than basketballs being thrown. They blew it off as a beaver hitting his tail on the water. I'm quite sure most people have heard that. But she said then they realized there were boulders the size of basketballs being thrown off the hill behind them into the lake. And that's when they said, we're all done. We're not fishing here anymore. And they're not the only ones that have reported stuff
like that.
Like where we stopped and skipped the stones and everything else right there.
Yeah, that was
coming from the other side. And you can see into the woods at least 50 yards. And these rocks were coming from beyond where you could see over and landing in the road and into the water. And
we're talking about some heavy duty rocks.
Oh yeah, these aren't pebbles, and they aren't baseball size.
Size.
You can always tell the difference though between a beaver slap and a rock.
Oh hell
because
yeah.
a beaver slap is a slap, and the rock is always going to have that dunk.
Yep. It's
Brian, tell them about.
I keep hearing shit.
When we heard the vocalization here, tell them that.
Yeah, my wife and I come down here 3 years ago, right? It was a night like this, actually, and I don't remember if it was late spring.
I think it was summer.
Well, anyway, we were down here. It's just like it is tonight. If you listen, nothing.
Yeah. Well, you can hear the chirpers.
A chirper here once in a while, but off in this area, but up in the higher elevation, we could hear, I don't want to say guttural, but it was like it wasn't a screech owl, it wasn't an owl. You could tell it wasn't. There was something up there let out somewhat of a bellow and stopped, and then maybe within another minute there was what we thought we heard two hoots, and it wasn't an owl, it wasn't a bear, because it didn't sound like a bear that let out the original, I can't say guttural, it was a more high pitched, but it was sort of long. And that was it that night. We stayed here for a while. We never heard anything else, but that's just one of those kind of areas. I mean, they knew we were coming down this road tonight. If they're here, they know we're here already. They knew what we were up to, probably. But everybody blows them off as being stupid animals. No, they're not. And they're not animals. Not in my book.
Since the events of 1976, an increasing number of witnesses have come forward to share their own stories of encountering Bigfoot. Brian Gosselin has collected many of these accounts, contributing to a growing body of evidence. A quick look at the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization's website reveals numerous sightings in New York alone. When you hear the name Sasquatch or Bigfoot, you might think of the primordial redwood forests of the Pacific Northwest, the Stygian swamps of the Deep South, the grass fields of Ohio, the jungles of Southeast Asia, or the towering mountains of Nepal. However, New York boasts its own relatively untamed wilderness. The state is home to the Adirondack Park, a sprawling 6 million acre area filled with thick wooded forests and mountains that grow denser as you travel north. The southernmost parts of the Adirondacks, particularly areas like Whitehall near the Vermont border, are characterized by swamps, farmland, and silt rivers. These silt rivers and swamps are hotspots for Bigfoot activity, possibly due to the untouched wilderness and challenging terrain. The diverse ecology provides a solid potential food source for these elusive creatures. We have gathered several reports from the BFRO website focusing on the area surrounding the Poultney River, the very place Brian guided us in our quest for Bigfoot evidence. In the next part of our video series, we will travel down the Poultney River in search of footprints and any potential evidence of Bigfoot's existence. Stay tuned for our continued exploration and the fascinating discoveries that lie ahead.
You're hearing something down there?
This way, yes.
I'm hearing something like a honk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear a bullfrog. It's going goomp.
Kayla heard one before.
There it goes back. Just to see some big red eyeballs would be cool.
Does this stop right here, Brian, or does it keep? Oh,
That's where it stops. That's what I say. It gets all that gold, heavy goldenrod and
Yeah.
weeds and pucker brush. And
Come on, man. Where are you? So, guys, we're at the Poultney River right now. It's a very good water source, and it's a very good food source for any type of a Bigfoot or a bipedal ape to survive in this type of environment. So we're trying to see if we can hear anything going on out there. As you guys can see, my voice will usually lie right around 100 hertz, and somewhere in between probably minus 50 decibels. We're looking for anything below it. We want to see down here. If these guys didn't have headphones on right now, I'd make a call, but I don't want to make anybody deaf.
Go ahead. Go ahead, give it a call, Joe.
Yeah?
Give it a call.
Oh!
that's a good one right there.
See, now when Anthony just did that, check it. This is his max right here. This is the peak. So he's at minus 92 decibels and 549 hertz.
Which is about right for.
Which is a human voice. Yeah, that's about right.
Kayla, did you just go whoo or like a whoo?
No, nobody said anything.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
you've got those on.
I just heard that. I just heard it. It sounded like a woman who went whoo.
Ooh.
Like a sigh, like a whoo.
I don't remember.
Oh my God.
I would have to check the
You didn't do it. I'd have heard you.
yeah.
I'm standing right next to you.
I clearly heard that. And if it wasn't one of you, it sounded like it would have been you, Kayla.
Where? Off in this direction?
Pardon me?
Off in this direction?
No, it was over here.
Let's take a walk this way and then we'll just listen.
It was just so clearly a voice. It was not. Like
Now,
a
was it
bird.
after us kind of yelling?
You were yelling, and then you stopped, and then I didn't hear anything for a minute, and then I heard this whoo kind of sound, and I was so sure it was Kayla. So I'm kind of hoping when she checks the footage, it was Kayla. Because if it wasn't, I don't know what that was.
Don't click at me. Keep looking across the river, seeing if I see anything in the thermal.
Do you know how to take a picture with that thing in case you do? You can
Just the
press
trigger?
the trigger.
It takes a picture?
Yeah.
Okay.
This encounter comes from Brian H. Quote,
On November 7th and 8th, I revisited my family property to investigate wood knocking I recall hearing there since childhood. The reason for the investigation stems from my own sighting in the area in the 1980s and the anecdotal reports on BFRO concerning the behaviors of the species. The family property is situated in the town of Whitehall in Washington County, New York. We used to operate a tree farm on the property and were there quite often, even staying overnight on weekends and weekdays. Frequently, I would hear repetitive knocking, always coming from the west, southwest, or northwest of us. When I was younger, I thought nothing of it. As I got older and realized it was coming from our own property, I began to ask those with me what I was hearing. No one could say anything except someone with an axe, I guess. I spent much more time in the forest than anyone I knew. Soon, the idea that some lazy axe man was there every time I was in the forest occurred as too large of a coincidence. I went looking for the trespasser, but could never catch up to him or find what was chopping at the rate of 4 to 5 blows every 10 to 15 minutes. On the return visit, I was disappointed. There is a particular place formerly part of the property which the species may frequent for some reason. I headed there in the deliberate attempt to provoke a reaction. The knocking began as soon as I was a quarter of a mile into the forest. I was moving uphill and off trail, so I was making a good amount of noise as I went. As I came closer to my destination, the knocking began to circle around me. At this point, there were as many as 3 sources of knocking, and it was coming at regular intervals. As I crested the ridge and began the final approach to the destination, the range and the intervals of the knocking decreased. This remained steady until I reached the destination, at which point I turned and headed northward to an old farm road and a homestead site that was occupied. At this point, the knocking trailed off, the range and interval decreased, and eventually it ended altogether. From here I climbed east over the mountain again to return to my place of origin. There was no further incident of knocking during the return trip. Now on the second day, the 8th, I returned to the site we used to frequent during our tree farming days. This was a site we used frequently for our overnight stays. While approaching this site from the east and traveling uphill, the knocking began immediately. Again, the knocking stayed to my front west until I reached my destination. Once there, the knocking stopped altogether. I occupied the site for a few hours. During this time, I ate lunch, and being an ecologist, I collected samples of vegetation and made notes and sketches of changes occurring in the surrounding forest. While walking the perimeter of the clearing in which the site was located, I heard a sound which is best described as a buck snort played poorly on a low-quality decoy. It came from the vicinity of a rock outcropping approximately 25 yards to my north-northwest. Thinking about it now, it was almost comical. At the time, however, I was more than a little frightened by it. I turned, walked quickly to my pack, and removed the survival rifle. As I assembled the rifle, several stones flew over my head, but near enough for me to hear them going past. As soon as the rifle was assembled and brought to bear, the rocks stopped flying and the forest was quiet. To this day, there were no further incidents. This was a scouting trip intended to assess the area for activity and potential for a sighting. I do plan to return to this area with other wildlife biologists for further study and observation.
Matt Moneymaker conducted a follow-up investigation on this report, where he vouched for Brian H.'s credibility as an experienced outdoorsman. Moneymaker was confident in Brian's ability to distinguish the so-called knocks from man-made sounds. Moneymaker also speculated on why Bigfoot-type creatures might produce these knocking noises. He suggested that it could be a form of primal communication between members of the species, helping them locate each other. This hypothesis adds an intriguing layer to the understanding of Bigfoot behavior, emphasizing the complexity of their potential communication methods and social interactions. This insight, combined with the increasing number of sightings in the rich untamed wilderness of New York, particularly in areas like the Adirondack Park and around the Poultney River, underscores the significance of continued investigation and evidence gathering in the region. It was also mentioned at the bottom of this report that historically, Robert Rogers, the founder of Rogers Rangers, in 1755, a company of highly trained infantry soldiers that eventually became the modern-day Army Rangers, claimed to have encountered mountain apes. According to Rogers, these creatures threw stones at his company, forcing them to retreat with rifle fire. While there is no archival information to confirm this encounter that we could find, it is not the first reported sighting of a Sasquatch-like creature from that relative time period. Samuel de Champlain, a French cartographer and explorer, also claimed to have encountered a giant and hairy human-like creature in the early 1600s. Champlain's account adds an early European perspective to the sightings of mysterious creatures in North America. Furthermore, the native tribes of the area, including the Iroquois and Algonquin, have rich oral traditions filled with tales of stone giants and mountain men. These stories have been passed down through generations, suggesting a long-standing awareness of such beings in the region. These historical accounts contribute to the mystique of Bigfoot and underscore the enduring nature of these stories. They suggest that sightings and encounters with mysterious, large, human-like creatures have been part of North American history for centuries. This long history of sightings adds an important context to modern-day investigations and research into the existence of Bigfoot. It also highlights the significance of the ongoing work by researchers and enthusiasts like Brian Gosselin in documenting and understanding these mysterious creatures.
Guys, we're starting to hear something straight that way. There's a ridge and a really big mountain up here. Me, Sue, and Brian are all feeling very uneasy standing here. We've been here for probably about 20 minutes, maybe a half an hour. I'm trying to run some thermals. Anthony's making some call outs. They keep hearing something to the left and straight ahead, but I can't seem to get any type of a heat signature on that ridge at all. Ooh! Ooh!
I think he said do it. Try one more time.
Ooh! Ooh!
Yeah, I can still hear that train.
Yeah, it wasn't the train. I heard something else. Maybe it was. I thought I heard a low, so maybe it was the train.
No. Where's Brian?
He's all the way up there.
He walked up the
But
road.
he's that way, right?
Yeah, he did.
Something over here just fell. Did you hear that?
No.
Oh.
So, guys, Brian was sitting up the road that way on the left side, and I was hanging out down here with everybody else. I heard something like being thrown. And when I walked up that way, Brian came up out of the bush, and I said to him, "Did you hear a noise?" He said, "Yeah, it sounded like gravel being thrown." So I know I'm not crazy because he heard it too. It could have been a scurrying mouse or raccoon, possum, whatever. But it was just odd that we're in the middle of nowhere at midnight. And I know we're in the woods. But it's just odd that we're out here at midnight and calling for Sasquatch and we get rocks thrown at us.
So it sounded like a handful of gravel that was thrown up and it's hitting other stones, and leaves and stuff like that. Yeah.
So
it was funny you said, I asked me if I threw it. No, I didn't, because I heard it must be the same time
it must
you
be
did.
the same time I did.
We were about 50 yards apart, too.
We don't know what's here, but me and him both have a very uneasy feeling, so does Sue. And we're going to continue maybe for another half hour here, maybe move to another location, but I'm not really seeing too much here. We ran thermals, we ran a spectrogram, listening devices, recording devices. We're hoping to find something paranormal tonight. Right, Brian?
Yes, find something. We're trying, giving our best.
Another anonymous report from the BFRO in Poultney, Vermont in 1981 reads,
Whitehall is a small town with little to do for teenagers. Driving all the back roads was one of the pastimes of choice. So late one night, my girlfriend and I drove out to East Bay and stopped to talk for a while. After a few moments spent parked near the bridge, I saw what looked to be a man walking across the marshy area to our left. The distance, I'm assuming, was about 200 to 300 yards. I gauged this by seeing a fence line at that distance. We both watched as the man approached the fence line. He cleared it without stopping, simply stepping over it as if it were a low stool. Knowing that the snow was not that deep or that hard to support a man of his apparent size, and that it was highly unlikely for anyone to be out in the marshes at that time of night, I stepped out of the car to get a better look. As soon as I had gotten out of the car, the man changed course and began heading straight toward us. I closed the car door to cancel the interior light to prevent showing my location. But at this point, the man broke into a run, and his speed was incredible. He closed the distance between us very quickly. My girlfriend was screaming for me to get back in the car at this point. So I did. I got back in the car, and she drove back over the bridge into New York. As we went, I looked behind us and saw that we were being pursued, although we were building up a gap. As soon as we returned to Hardtop Road, he broke off pursuit and ran back into the forest near the bridge. We returned to town and never spoke of this incident to anyone other than the two trusted friends. I have since told friends and relatives that I saw something out there but could not say that it was any animal I had ever seen, nor could it have been any man. I should add that at this time I had spent 16 years working and playing outdoors. I had encountered all the major predators in our area and knew of their habits and habitats. I know that I did not mistake an animal for a humanoid creature that night. I will further add that I am now a natural resource scientist with 16 years of experience studying and reporting information based on my observations and analysis. I still cannot state with precision what I saw that night.
John Perry conducted a follow-up on this investigation, recounting the conditions of that night and noting how clear the visibility was. He emphasized that the movements of the creature were not human. Perry also mentioned that there might have been some exaggeration of the creature's size due to the distance and angle of sight. The mention of the eyes glowing red could likely be attributed to the reflection of vehicles' headlights, further suggesting it was something non-human in nature. The credibility and contents of these reports, combined with Brian Gosselin's own research and collected stories, suggest that the Poultney River area of Whitehall, New York, and Vermont is indeed a hot spot for strange happenings. Brian himself supports the theory of Bigfoot migration, noting that encounters seem less common in the summer and more frequent in the fall and sometimes even into winter. This observation lends some credibility to the migrational Bigfoot theory. According to this theory, larger animals usually need to hibernate in the winter months, and it is possible that Bigfoot-type creatures either hibernate or migrate. The migration could be due to certain areas of the country having a better or more reliable food supply during different seasons, or it could be related to mating habits. The elusiveness of these supposed creatures and their potential low population could mean they have to travel long distances, possibly even hundreds of miles, just to find a suitable mate. These insights, coupled with historical accounts and modern reports, build a compelling case for the presence of Bigfoot in the region. The ongoing research and investigations by enthusiasts like Brian Gosselin continue to add valuable information to our understanding of these mysterious creatures.
Well, we're back down across the road from where they originally sent their tent up. We're down on the far end of the Cogman. In this spot here, we've had multiple reports over the last, since 1976 and on, and even before that, people have fished here. This is a good fishing spot. And they've had good-sized boulders, I'm not talking softball-sized rocks. I'm talking basketball-sized rocks that come from the woods over there, come across this body of water, land here, they land all the way up into the road. So either somebody's got a gigantic slingshot or a catapult across the river here. A lot of people won't even fish here anymore, but this is more or less the spot. Now they come to fish, drink, and hell raise. But going back, people I know that used to fish down here, in fact, there's a couple of them that are older than me now, but they said they wouldn't come back down here and fish, and the same thing happened to them up by the Cogman Bridge, where they thought it was a beaver tail being slapped against the water, and it wasn't. They realized there were great big boulders being thrown off, and I'm talking rocks. The way she explained it were rocks, this big coming off the hill, landing in the water, not very far from where they were sitting, so they got out of there too. But this is the same area where there's been reports, sightings down the other end where we just came from, and that was up on those tall ledges. We're only from where we just came from, we're only, as far as following the water goes, 2.5, maybe 3 miles from that spot. Then you go back up here another mile and a half is where the Abair Road is, and that's where everything transpired from. But like I said, it's you can't make it happen. You can just come out, visit, talk, and hope you hear a vocalization or get to see something. Even with a little bit of luck, we'll get a rock thrown at us tonight or something. I don't know. We're trying, and we're trying hard, especially these guys. They come a long ways to do this.
But we're gonna go out in the morning, guys, and we're gonna look around for some sign too after the night is over. But we're gonna probably stop at this spot, and then we're gonna head back to camp for a bit and see what we can get to happen there. And then if we can get a couple hours of shut-eye and take right off in the morning, then that's what we'll do.
During our field investigation with Brian Gosselin, the weather proved quite challenging, and a thunderstorm prevented us from staying the night and conducting a morning investigation. However, we have plans to continue our field work with Brian, so stay tuned for more updates.
Hearing anything?
I don't know. I'm hearing something, but it's way far away.
I think I hear it. I think it's a bird.
So I wanted to reiterate a little bit on what it was kind of like to be out in the Poultney River at night with just the team and Brian and his wife. It was a little alarming. A lot of the spots that we had gone to, I can't really say that I felt much. Now, when we went to the second portion of the actual investigation, I think it was probably somewhere around 1 in the morning. And as soon as I stepped foot out of the truck, it seemed to be a little off. I mean, everything from the air. There seemed to be a little bit of an electrostatic discharge that I was feeling. I questioned my team as to whether or not they were kind of experiencing the same thing. And at the time, they told me that they weren't really feeling anything that was off to them. But Brian and his wife, Sue, both told me that they both felt something that was very weird to them. Almost, I don't want to say like dangerous or something that would pose for you to be on edge, so to speak. But for the time that we spent in this one spot, I did experience something that was very strange. Now, while the team was further up on the road, they were sitting closer by where the cars were, and Brian had taken a walk, probably I'd have to say south of where we were, and I didn't see him for a minute. And all of a sudden I started to walk a little bit towards his direction, and I stopped, and I was using a thermal at the time, trying to see if I could grab any pictures in the trees, and it sounded to me like I heard gravel being thrown, and it wasn't but more than 20-25 yards in front of me. So before I went out to investigate, I asked everybody in the team, I said, did anybody hear that? And they all turned around to me, and they didn't know what I was talking about. So I started to head on down that way, and lo and behold, about that amount of space down that road was Brian had he walked down there without me knowing and tucked himself in the bush a little bit. And as I was walking down that way, I was starting to get really like freaked out. And all of a sudden I saw Brian. He must have spotted me come walking down the road, and he stood up and he said, you know, what's up? And I said, did you hear something? And he goes, did it sound like gravel being thrown? And I said, yeah. And he turned around to me and he said, yeah, I heard the same thing. But unfortunately, the rest of everybody was up by the cars. So they didn't really get an idea of what we both heard, but it was very strange. I'm not saying that it couldn't have been somebody kicking rocks. It could have been anything. But when you're in that kind of environment at night and you got your mind set for a specific thing that you're looking for, and then you start to hear stuff that shouldn't really be in the equation, it tends to throw you off a little bit.
All right, guys, so we've been hanging out for a little bit. We had our lights off, kind of just chilling, talking, seeing if anything was going to come around, but we're going to try something a little different. So I have a didgeridoo. This is an Aborigine instrument from Australia. I doubt Bigfoot here has heard it before, but we're going to kind of try and play a little bit, and I know sometimes they're curious, so we'll just see if anything happens, I suppose. Give me a minute. The mouthpiece is all fucked up.
Hold on.
There you go.
Joey.
All right, so we kind of got into, Ant tried to use the didgeridoo. We made some calls.
And it didn't.
And the didgeridoo didn't.
The didgeridoo don't.
We tried to listen with a parabolic to see if we can get any kind of call back to what Anthony and Tanner were doing. Unfortunately, we didn't get anything here. It's a really cool spot. I definitely would like to check this place out with Tony and maybe do some fishing here, but I think Sasquatch is absent from this area tonight. So
either that or he doesn't want to communicate. But
which is his prerogative.
I think we're gonna head back to camp and we'll hang out there for a bit, maybe chill out for a bit, try some stuff over there, and we'll take it from there, guys.
We at Finding Dystopia are dedicated to exploring all things paranormal. We will continue our research into Bigfoot sightings in the Poultney River area of New York and Vermont with the help of Brian Gosselin and others who share our passion. If this is something you want to see, please support us by liking the video, leaving a comment, and subscribing to our channel. Bigfoot will probably continue to be elusive for many years, so all we can do is share stories, continue research, and conduct field investigations. Each sighting and report adds to the body of evidence and helps us get closer to the understanding of these mysterious creatures. And as always, stay scared, everyone.